Premiums can be defined as gifts awarded in return for donations. However, premiums in Denari can also be used as the source for the online community online store. We'll talk about both in this video. The premium feature is really a basic inventory management tool. So the first thing we need to do is set up the inventory that we will either give away as gifts in return for donations or sell in the online store. We'll start by clicking on the Premiums button on the left and then clicking Premiums. This is a list of all the items we have in inventory. We can add a new one by clicking on Add New in the upper right. The first field is the part number. This can be as simple or as complicated as you would like. If you're an organization that has hundreds of items, you may need a more complicated tracking system. You could have a warehouse full of items and you might use a code to keep track of where they are. In that case, you could use that code here to tie them together. But if you only have a few items, you could simply start with a 1 and continue with 2, 3, 4, etc. You just have to have a different part number for each item. Next, enter a description for the item. Let's say that we're selling or giving away a book, so then we might put the title of the book here. The active checkbox allows us to make this item inactive once we are no longer using this item. Just check the box to make it inactive. The reorder quantity and the max order quantity down below here are only informational fields. The reorder number gives you a visual reminder of how low you want your inventory to go before you order more. The max order reminds you of the maximum amount you want to keep on hand. In a more sophisticated inventory system, these fields might be used to trigger an email or message to tell you to reorder, but these fields are only reminding you visually. The quantity on hand field is blank right now, and we'll talk more about that later. But Denari does count down the items left in inventory as you ship them out. The notes field can be used for anything you'd like. They're here for your personal use. The photo can be used on your online community page. So you might use the photo of the book cover, for example. Click the Change Photo link to browse for and upload the photo you want. It's a good idea to resize the photo down to a reasonable size before you upload. Digital cameras and phones take huge photos. When we display it on the OLC page, we can resize it on the fly. However, the donor's browser still needs to upload the big version of the photo, and then the settings in the HTML will resize it as the donor views it in their browser. Having a larger number of large photos can make the pages load more slowly. The recommended donation field is the amount that you will either sell the item for in the online store, or if you're using it as a premium, it's the amount that you want for a donation in return for this item. For example, you might tell your donors that for a donation of $50 you will send them this book, so you'll put 50 in this field. The fair market value field is the amount that the book is actually worth if you were to go to the store to buy it. So let's say you're using this item as a premium. Donors send $50 and you send the book. If they were to go to the store to buy the book, it might cost $35. So you'll put 35 in the fair market value field. When you enter the donation, you will create a gift record with 2 splits. One split will be for $35 and you will make it non-charitable. The second split will be for $15 and it will be charitable. When you send a receipt, Denari will show that $35 is non-tax deductible and the remaining $15 as tax deductible. If you're selling this item in your online store, you could do the same. Or if you're selling the item for the same price that they could buy it for at the store, you would enter 35 as the recommended donation and 35 as the fair market value. The special pricing section gives you the ability to apply quantity pricing. You can set the quantity 1 low and high and enter the price for this group, and then do the same thing for quantity 2, etc. on down. So you might say here that from 1 to 5 items will be $50 each, and from 6 to 10 items will be $40 each, and so forth. And you have 4 different groupings that you can use there. The online community fields here contain the fields that are relative to your online community page, the online store component of that page. First, the hide from online community checkbox is just that. If you have an item that you want to store in inventory but don't want to make it available in the online store, you can check this box. You may, from time to time, have items that are sold out, so you can check this box until they're available again. Uncheck it, and they'll be back on the website. The OLC favorite field is used when the donor searches for an item and finds nothing. Denari will display the items that you have checked as favorites so that the donor doesn't have a blank screen. The appeal and fund code fields are what Denari will use when it creates the gift record for this item. OLC category and OLC supercategory allow you to group items together. For example, let's say you have a large number of CDs for sale, several different t-shirts, etc. You could create a category called CDs and one for t-shirts. Let me switch over to the Training Company online community page. On the web page, in the sidebar menu, you'll have a section here called Online Store. Under that, you'll see the CDs and the t-shirts. These are the categories that I mentioned a moment ago. When the donor clicks on one of these, and I'll click on the t-shirts link here, you'll see either the list of CDs and or the t-shirts that are available for sale. I have a premium set up called Cool T-shirt Blue and another one called Cool T-shirt Red. When I click on the red shirt option, I get a page that allows me to choose a quantity and size. Let me go back to premiums, and I'm going to go ahead and look up that red t-shirt premium record. There are 3 fields here called the HTML fields or HTML editor fields. There's the full description, the list description, and the cart description. The first 2, the full and the list, are fields that you can use to describe the item. The Denari staff person who sets up your online community page can use either of these on the website. Usually the full description is what's used when the donor clicks on that item. So let me again switch back to the field here, and you see this is a really cool t-shirt. That text is coming from the full description field here. They see the photo and the full description. As I said, the list description can also be used if a second description is needed somewhere in the process. Most of the time you'll just put the description of your item in the full description field, and that's all you'll need. The shopping cart description is pretty important, however. It's used in the confirmation email that is sent to the donor automatically when the donor checks out. It is just a reminder of what they purchased and the confirmation that you received their order. So you'll probably just enter a short description here. If it's a CD, for example, you would put the name of the CD here in the shopping cart description field. The extra data fields here, the extra name and extra type and definition, are primarily used for t-shirt sizes, but they could be used for other things as well. So look again, let me switch over to that red t-shirt option in the training company OLC page, and we see the quantity and the size here. And again, I'll switch back, and so here we have the size. That's where that's coming from. So the extra data name, we're going to call that size. We want this to display in a combo box, and then these will be the values of the combo box. So here's that size, the name field. Here's the combo box, and there's the values in that combo box that we defined in the premium record itself. Now let's switch back again to the premium record. Now that we have everything in our record and we're set up and ready to go, we just need to click Save, and we now have our premium on record. So now that we have it in inventory, we need to tell Denari how many we have in stock. We do that by clicking the Inventory Adjustment button here on the right. This page shows us the inventory changes that have been made to this item. And so in this case, there's only one that has been made when this item was initially set up. But let's say that we're receiving 50 red t-shirts that we're going to either give away or sell. So we want to add them to our inventory. We do that by clicking the Add New button. If the item's not already chosen here, we can click the drop down and choose it from our grand list of inventory items. We'll enter a quantity, in this case 50. We'll put in the adjustment date, so that's basically the date that we're making this adjustment, and then we'll click Save. And now that quantity on hand field that we saw earlier over in the premium record will reflect this change. At some point, we may find that our inventory has gotten off track. Maybe someone has been giving away t-shirts. We find that the quantity on hand field says we have 20 red t-shirts, but when we count them, we really only find 10. We can use the inventory adjustments form to enter a negative amount in this case. So we'll enter a negative 10 here. And again, click Save. And so the inventory will now adjust downward by 10 units so that what we think we have on hand actually matches what we have on hand. There are three ways that a premium can be assigned to a donor. First is through the online store from your online community page, which we've talked about. When a donor makes a purchase, let's say a red t-shirt, Denari creates a gift record for that item and a shipping log record, which we'll look at next. The second way that a premium can be linked to a donor is through a gift record, and that's done manually. To take a look at that, I'll click on the Gifts Pledges link here on the left, and then Gift Batching. And I'm just going to select an open batch. From there, we'll go to Gift Entry to go into the batch itself. And I'll click Add New to create a new gift. From here, you would enter your gift normally, just as you would. You'd select the donor, the letter, etc., the total, and on down the page. Down below, we have a premium section. And so here you select the premium, the ship date, the quantity, the status, so it's either going to be pending or shipped, and then the fair market value. So once those fields are filled in, you'll click Save just as you would for any gift, and Denari will now create a shipping log record also. And then the third way that a donor can be linked to a premium is through the radio Share-a-thon module. We won't go into details of how a Share-a-thon works here. That will be covered in a separate video and through a web training class. However, I can briefly say that select premiums can be associated with your Share-a-thon. Your phone staff then can assign premiums at the point of the donation. Again, Denari will create the shipping log record at that time. So what is this shipping log we've been talking about? Let's click on the premiums link here on the left, and then we'll go to shipping log. Here you find a list of all premiums that are set to be shipped, and it allows you to manage your shipping activity from here if you want to. I'll click on one as an example. At the top, it shows what the item is that was either purchased or we are giving away. The reason here explains how this record was generated. It shows the donor or recipient and the ship date, and then the date here is really the target date and can be changed by you if needed. When an item is purchased through the online store, it gives today's date as the ship date. And you could also use this field to indicate when the item was actually shipped by changing it as part of the shipment process. The status for this log entry is pending, which means that it hasn't been shipped yet. You can change that to shipped when the item is actually sent. One note here, we mentioned earlier that the quantity on hand field for an item doesn't change until it has been shipped. That happens when you change this to shipped and hit the save button. And you can also change the quantity and fair market value at this point if needed. Let's go back to the list of log entries. I'll click the lookup button here. This list can be used to manage your shipping process. You can scan the status column to see which ones have been shipped and which ones have not. You can also click on the column header here to reorder the list so that all of the pending items come to the top. You can now click on an item, fill out the label if necessary, mark it shipped, and then hit save. This method works well if you only have a few items to ship at any one time. However, if you have more than that, you may want to use the packing and shipping labels option. For that, I'm going to click on the premiums link again, and now click on shipping packing labels. Let's skip the run mode field here for a moment. It's important to note that this report will produce a list of items that are pending in your shipping log and have a ship date of today or earlier. So you can use this to produce a list of items that are ready to be shipped. So the first thing you need to do is choose an output type. The two most common are the printed packing slip and Excel, so we'll talk about those. The printed packing slip output will produce an 8.5 by 11 page. It fits an Avery label format that has a label at the top that shows the donor's name and address info and can be removed and stuck on the package. The lower section shows the item that is being shipped. Of course, you don't have to use the Avery label format. You could print this to paper if you want to. The Excel option is just a list of information about the items being shipped, and some people prefer to work off of the spreadsheet rather than using the label format. You can choose an output order, and you can also choose to print labels or envelopes at the same time. Denari will produce labels in Avery 5160 format or envelopes in number 10 size. The include ship date of null allows you to pick up any item that has no ship date. So null simply means that that field is blank. Sometimes that happens, and you can get that list by using this field if you want to. Now let's go back and talk about the run mode field. There are two options here: change shipping status to shipped and do not change shipping status. The first option can be used when you're actually ready to ship the items. You can produce your labels or Excel spreadsheet and mark the items as shipped at the same time. The next time you're ready to ship more items, only those marked pending will show in this report. But sometimes you want to see the list of items that are ready to be shipped, so you can choose the second option. So now you can get the report without marking all of the items off as shipped. If you do mark something shipped by mistake, you can go back to the shipping log and change it back to pending if needed, but you probably don't want to do that for a lot of items. Now let's go back to the premiums page, and we'll look at a couple of other options here. First, we'll look at Create Many Records. This is used to create a bunch of shipping log records. One scenario might be that you decide to send a gift to everyone who gave during the month of December. Of course, you would first set up that item as the premium. You also need to create a name segment to identify those donors who gave during the month. Now you can select that here, select the premium that you want to send them, choose a ship date, and set the status. You can create the records as having already been shipped if you want, by just selecting that option. Then you'll click on the Add Shipping Records, and Denari will create those shipping log records. And now you can use the Shipping Packing Labels report to ship them out. Again, let's go back to the Premiums button here, and we'll look at Inventory Adjustment. This is actually the same location that we saw earlier when we were setting up the premiums. It's just two different ways to get to the same place. This is a list of all the adjustments that have been made to your inventory in general, rather than just one item. So let's say we get in a shipment of 100 new CDs. You can click on Add New, choose the premium, enter 100, and give it an adjustment date, and then click Save to record those 100 CDs. Of course, if these 100 CDs are new to your organization, you'll need to set them up as a premium first in the premium section so that they're available to select here. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also remove items by using a negative number here as well. Okay, so let's go back to the Premiums button, and we'll skip down to the quantity on hand. This is actually pretty simple. You'll just click the Run QOH report here on the right, and Denari will put a report in your inbox showing all of your active premiums with the quantity. It also shows you the reorder quantity so that you could use this to manage your inventory if you want. Back to premiums again. And this time we'll look at premium classifications. As you know, classifications are a way to code name records so that you can pull them out later in a list. This is the same, except they apply to your premium items. I think that most of the time you won't need to use these, but they can be useful. It just offers you an alternative way to add a code to your premiums for later reporting. At this point, we've covered 99% of what you need to know about premiums. I just want to point out the segmenters briefly. So I'll click on this Premiums button again. And on the right here, we see the Premium segmenter, the Shipping Log segmenter, and the Shipping Log Utilities. These are similar to Name, Gift, and Pledge segmenter in that they allow you to get lists of premiums based on the filter criteria that you use, and they offer you a little more flexibility in terms of pulling out those premiums based on those filters. I'm not going to cover them here because they are a little complicated and they're almost never used. If you need help with these, you can contact tech support and they'll walk you through them. This concludes the video on premiums. As always, if you have any questions, please contact tech support through the help button at the top of the page.